So today guys, let's talk about some dolls and how you can play with them. Today we're going to be looking at a tool called DesignDoll. So if you've never heard about this tool before, this is a tool that has been in existence for a very long time. It is a tool that actually makes you or gives you the ability to, pose a character how you want it to be before you go into sculpting, or if you want to use it for some, let's say, references for maybe you're painting art or things like that. Or you can check Vroid, an app that you can make use of to create anime characters. There are also other ones like the Miko Miko dance as well. You can find these apps and play with it. But today we're talking about this one, and I'm just going to do a simple review about this app. So just in case you want to spend your buck or spend the money that you have in your hands right now to purchase this, you should know what you're getting into. So once you open up this app, the first thing that you're going to see is this. And actually, before you even get into opening this app, if you want to get a copy of this app, you can go over to the terrawell.net and you're going to find a place that says download. So let's just scroll all the way down to here and you can download this and get it for free. For free simply means that you can have access to playing with the app, doing everything, but you cannot actually export. So if we open up this app, the first thing you will notice is the character is standing in an anime style pose. And a disclaimer is this app doesn't teach you anything that has to do with muscle system. So don't think for a minute that this is super anatomically based. Okay, it is not anatomically based. It's just a tool that would get you from point A to point B when you want to pose a character for reference sake, or maybe you want to use it for sculpting. Okay, so let's look at this. Once you want to start navigating, it makes use of the very industry standard form of navigating. Either ways, it still has other means of navigating. So if you use your middle mouse button, you can pan around, and your right mouse button to rotate. But if you want to get the most out of it, like you want to zoom in and zoom out and do all of that fun stuff, you need to hold down Alt, and with your right mouse button you can actually push in and push out. With your left mouse button you can orbit around the character, and with your middle mouse button you can pan around. Very industry standard like, and I like it that much. The next big thing which we're going to look at is how you can actually play with this character. And playing with this character simply means posing this character. So if you just select a certain part of the character, you would notice automatically that we have this sort of GUI. It's more like a rigging GUI that pops up that tells you where you have selected and automatically scales the character to that position. So these things have camera tied to it. If I click on the leg, it jumps right to the leg. If I click on the torso, it jumps back into the torso. And certain parts you're going to notice they have this point. These points are basically where you can manipulate or move the character from. And it's very clear that this is running with an IK, and I think he has more of an IK FK kind of movement, but for now you're just going to notice more of an IK kind of movement. So an IK simply means is an inverse kinematics, which actually says that if you move an object, let's go ahead and pick this tiny point here and position this, you can see this object is moving inversely to the position of this other object. All right, so that is what we are doing. I also found out that you have to actually tap the Ctrl Z a couple of times before it works. Most times it just works, sometimes it doesn't work. I don't know if it's because of the new update, which is 4.0, or maybe I actually don't know, because I did not really experience this in the previous versions. All right, so how this works is this, that once you have this character here and you want to move the object, you need to select the point at which you want to move this object, and this point that is in the middle is actually for the move, while the one outside is for rotate. All right, this is basically for rotate, and for rotate simply deals with you being able to rotate the pull vector that is here and at the same time rotate this that exists here. A very clear example is when you're using Maya, for example. So within this part we have this object here, and let's say I have this and it's moving all the way up, and you can notice that around here I have this pull vector I can use to tilt the leg, like move it left and right. All right, so we have more like a pull vector that actually plays with the character and at the same time it moves the feet, and at the same time it moves these other parts. Now this doesn't simply suggest that only these nodes are used for moving this character. Certain parts of the objects are also tied like it is done in Presto. So Presto is more like an in-house tool that is used by, I guess, Pixar or Disney, one of them, and it's used for making the animations. All right, so for this you have to select on a particular form. So let's say I'm selecting on the head, or you can select on the hands, or you can go ahead and select directly on the toe here, and automatically you're going to find this gigantic rotational gizmo that you can use to rotate the head to a certain point. So you can choose to rotate the head to wherever you want it to be and position it there. If you want to simply get rid of this character so that you can focus on dealing with the skeleton, which I think might make a lot of sense for you, you can click on this button that is here and select this, and all of a sudden you have something you can easily just go through and manipulate. I think this would get all of those confusions out, and let's just make this character straight because no one actually stands that way. And let's balance this weight a bit like that. All right, so let's balance this character's weight a little bit like this, and I can use this part here to position the weight. Okay, so our character is standing this way, and let's also just simply move this to a point like this. Okay, nobody really keeps their hands so straight like that. Okay, something like that. Okay, so once you're done with this, you can just simply click on this button and come back here. Now let's talk about the light. This light you see here, just like the light you can find in ZBrush, is actually used to add rims to this character. Right, so you can add rim light to this character and, you know, use this to light the character. You have several matte caps here that you can play with, so you can find the one that best appeals to you. So if you want something like this, depending on what gets your attention, you can go ahead and play with it and position it here. I'm not so much of a fan of the facets that happen each time you move this up and down. I'm not so much of a fan of that, but despite that, it works, and that's what matters. And if you want to change anything that has to do with all of these matte caps, or maybe how your object is represented, there is a button down here that has to do with the settings, and once you click it, you can come through and make all of the changes that you want directly there. If we move back to what we have, you're going to notice that right on top of here we have a layer called model and another layer called box. So what does this mean? This simply means that within this part where we have the model, we can access every single thing that has to do with the model here, and within this part where we have the box, we can actually use this to import background images or background objects. So let me just quickly select this box now, and you will notice that nothing gets selected. Okay, we're going to go ahead and import something sooner, but before then, let's actually talk about this. So for this particular one where we have the model, you would notice that right here we have this button that has to do with the visibility. So if I turn this off, I can turn off the model and I can turn it back on. And if I select this, you would notice that I have a gear icon that simply suggests places or the things I can select and deselect if I don't want those things to be visible. All right, so I can just simply turn this off and turn this back on, and now once I come through and come back here, you can see I have those places as invisible. If I want to get those things back, I can just simply come back and turn this all the way on, and I'm going to get my model back. The next thing which we're going to talk about is this. So once you have this selected, we've actually looked at this before. This is where you control the object and how the object form is. The next one is how you control the entire object itself. So you can see there is this gigantic set of gizmo. So the one on the base gets to do with positioning the character where you want it to be. This has to do with the rotation of the character, how you want the character to rotate, and you can find this other one by the corner that you can use for a turntable. One of the complaints I have about this is, in as much as I like this app, there is nothing that has to do with animating a certain pose. So if there was something like a keyframe animation, so you can just simply animated pose, take it out and reference this pose when you're doing like your frame by frame animation. I think it's going to make a lot of sense, and it might help a lot of artists as well. And just like I said earlier, this does not teach you how to work with anatomy. It doesn't teach you anything that has to work with anatomy. It only suggests for you to make poses. So learning anatomy is something you should also go ahead and try by yourself. Now, the next tool which we're going to look at is mirroring. And this mirroring simply deals with, once you're working with one part of this object, the other part of the object actually mirrors alongside. So a very good example is, if I'm moving this way, this is really bad, you would notice that these other legs or this other feet is moving to the opposite direction. If I go ahead and switch to something like this, to this other part has to do with adjusting the body type. So let's take the legs for example. I can come through and adjust the legs. Actually, let's take something that's much more visible. I can adjust the legs the way I want it to be. I can come over to the face, and let's make it much more of a male-like face. All right, okay, that's scary. So we can, okay, all right, I think something like this might be better, or maybe something like this could be good. And we can go over to the body, and let's give her some boobs probably, and we can come over to the shirt, to the torso, and let's find some feminine-like torso. All right, so we have some feminine-like torso. I think we need to turn down on the feet, on the thighs, on the legs. I think they're a little bit too much. She's being too thick. And let's actually look for the hand, and okay, add up something like this. All right, so yeah, you can go ahead and, you know, create something like this. And if you want to add up more models, let's say you want to import more models into this, you can come over to the items section, go over to the add object, and add a brand new model. You can give the model a name, so I'm just going to give it 001 and select OK, and there you have it, a brand new model for you to go ahead and play with. And once I select this now, I can position this model where I want it to be in the scene and reference this model as I would like to pose it. So you can create very interesting poses. You can go ahead, watch your animes, recreate the whole Naruto pose, recreate any kind of pose that you want to do directly inside here. The next thing which we're going to look at is the hand. All right, so right here where I have this button simply controls the hand, and you can see the R and the L, which simply means that you can control the left and the right hand at the same time. So if I come here and have this hand selected, I can choose to fold them. So let's just go back up a bit and position this properly where we can see it. All right, then we will just simply select the hand and come through. All right, so now I can choose to fold this hand how I want it to be. Really easy. I can choose to fold this other one as well how I would like it to be, and let's just position that there and fold all of this in. And you know, you can actually tilt this, you know, to position them where you want them to be. The same thing you can do for the left hand is the same thing you can do for the right hand is also the same thing you can also do for the left hand. But for the left hand, we want to take a different approach. So instead of doing something like this, there are presets that have been existing already. All right, but before we look at those presets, if you go ahead and click on this button here, you can actually control the hands how you want them to be. So I can use this instead of using that slider. All right, I can use this instead of using the slider to simply go ahead and play with this. Or if you're very indecisive of what you want to get, or you're not getting the pose that you want to get, you can use the library and load different hand postures or hand poses that exist in the library. So you can choose from any of these hand poses that exist in the library, and you can load them directly onto your model. The same thing that happens with the hand also happens with the feet. So you can also choose to flat the feet, raise it up, push it down, depending on what you want to get, and you can choose to work on individual toe as much as you want. Also, you can also come through and pose these feet anyhow you want them to be. And once you're done with that, you can go ahead and export this if you have the paid version. So if you don't have the paid version of this app, you may not be able to do a lot of things. Actually, not a lot. You may not be able to actually save the file as a TWD file. You may also not be able to export the file because basically it exports as OBJ, and you may also not be able to download models that exist on the Doll-Atelier. So what is Doll-Atelier? Doll-Atelier is basically a page where you can find models that other artists has actually posed, so you can get those models and work with them and do whatever thing you want to do with them. Now let's talk about how you import objects inside here. So if you want to reference an object or you want to import an object for your own use, you can choose to select the box here. All right, so we have this box here. We can choose to select it. Then when you come through and right click, you can go over to the tag and add up a new tag that says import tag. All right, so within the import tag, you can select and say import a mesh and select the mesh you want to import. So I'm just going to select this pole, for example, and say okay. Let's go ahead and simply make this one, and now you see I have a pole that exists here, and because I have this pole existing here, you'll find that I have a gizmo I can use to control the pole, right? So you can now take this pole, position it wherever you want it to be within your scene, use it as a reference guide to pose your character. So let's say your character has a sword, you can download a sword, model a sword, get a sword, export it as OBJ, and import the sword directly here. Another thing which I would like you guys to also know is once you're working with this model as it is, you may also want to directly paint on this model. So painting on this model can happen by you going over to the model itself, right clicking, going over to where you have add a tag, and then you can add in a sketch tag. So with the sketch tag, you'll be free to just simply come through and sculpt or paint around your object as you choose. Okay, so you can come through and make those paintings that you want. Let's say you want to go ahead and paint in some clothes, you can come through and just simply paint in some clothes for your model. And yeah, just basically reference this and paint in as much as you want. You can change from the colors here. You can use the eraser to actually erase some of the stuffs that exist, and do all of that fun stuff. One more thing I need to talk to you guys about before we call this a wrap is the camera. Okay, so how the camera works is a little bit different. Okay, so the camera works slightly different. You have your perspective and you have your main camera. If you want to go ahead and add multi-cameras, you can come through and create new cameras and look at them from this point. Basically, the original camera that your object will be seen from is definitely the camera that exists here, not this. This is your perspective. All right, this is your perspective and it is not your main camera. So think about this camera as your viewport. All right, so you can have multi different cameras. Okay, so if you come here and click on, let's say, new camera, you can give this camera a new name, and with this new camera now we can come through and just simply pose our object at this point. So now we can switch from the main camera, which is this one, and to this other camera. So it's basically you being able to set cameras and move around with them. This right here is your perspective, and it doesn't lock or save the camera positions for you. This is a tip I think you should know before you get your hands dirty with this app. And that's basically it. So once you're done with whatever you're doing, you can export it as a flat object, or you can export it as a 3D object. And speaking about exporting this thing as a 3D object and how much it costs, it doesn't cost way more than just $80. So with $80, you're going to have the ability of owning this app and playing with it and doing whatever you want to do with it. And there are some things I would like this app to implement, something like the timeline. So maybe if there is a timeline, to me I think it might make some sense. Another thing I wish that can happen is if it is possible for them to work on the UI, because for now, in as much as the UI looks very simple, some things are hidden and you don't really know how to find them. Like if you're using this app for the first time, you really don't know about these tags. All right, so you basically don't know about these tags, and you might not even understand how most of these things work. So if they can work on the UI and maybe position some things here, all of these spaces are free. They can actually use this, you know, maybe extend this a little bit lower and just use them with some name tags to actually explain this stuff. And all of these things that are hidden, most probably if we can just get some stuff that just has a writing here, or maybe something that has a writing here that tells you what you're doing at any given time, I think it's going to make a lot of sense. So I would like to know what you guys think about this in the comment section below. Probably you're one of these guys that actually sculpt from the beginning to start making your base mesh, and all the way from making your base mesh, you now start making your original sculpt. This might be a huge time saver for you. You might also be this guy that prefers making your anime sketches, but then sometimes you just lack in getting those proportions right, and maybe you keep reusing the same old technique. This might also be a solution for you. So the DesignDoll is here for you to actually take advantage of it and do whatever thing you want to do with it and create amazing stuff. So tell me what you guys think about this in the comment section below. Have you tried this app, or you want to try this app? Are there things you like about this? Are there things you want to know about this? Tell me what you think about it in the comment section, and if you like this video, simply give it a like, and don't forget to share with your friends. And if you're new here, it would be amazing if you can just hit that subscribe button and also turn on notification. And until I see you guys again with a review, app updates, tutorial, tips and tricks, free Friday, things like this. Peace.